Good afternoon. Yes, I welcome you once again to our training on Microsoft Access and Database Management. Today is part 4 of our training, and today we are moving on to another step forward. We are going to learn how to create queries and understand some basic terminologies in databases. So if you're interested in learning this, follow me on the screen and let's get started. All right. This is my screen right here, and I'm going to continue from where we ended the last time. What I want to do right now is to open the database file we created. So let me look for the file we created the last time, and I can see it right here on drive D, secured system, and I want to open that file. So I'll double click on it and Access will launch, and this is what we have right here. So if you look here on our Access objects, you are going to see the object we have there, which is database tables, and we only have one table, and the table here is titled what? Is named as students. So I'll double click on it and that table will open in the datasheet view. Do you remember the datasheet view? This is a datasheet view where you can actually see the data in your table. Now, before we continue, I want to list some of the terminologies I'll be talking about today. Today, I'll simply talk about query because that's going to be the subject of today's lesson. And I'll talk about primary key, which we have already seen it in action. And I'll also talk about foreign key. Foreign key. All right. Let me open the notes on database and see how we defined it. Okay, so this is database management, and I want to look at some of the terminologies we want to talk about. Now, I'll talk about a query. First of all, what is a query? I'm sure you've heard the word query before. What do you know about query? What have you heard about query before? What is a query? In the database world, we have a very important term here called query. And this query, I think all of databases hang on that single word, query. I'm sure if you have heard of the database language, the database language is SQL. Have you heard of SQL before? SQL stands for Structured what? Query language. Now, this SQL is the main language for databases. If you want to really get a hold of databases and database management, you need to learn this language. This language runs through almost all relational database management systems, each one of them. Once you understand this language, you can apply it everywhere. Now, this language, what do we use it to write? We use it to write queries. What is a query? In simple terms, a query can simply be defined as a request for information. So I said a query can be simply defined as a what? A what? A request for what? Information. That is it. So when you write a query, it means you are requesting for information, and your query is the actual question to the database. Now, one thing you need to understand about databases is that databases are there not only to store information or to store data, but to provide information whenever needed. Database is not just there for storing data, but to provide data when needed. Are you with me? Now, for you to get any data out of your database, you can only get data out of your database when you write a query. A query is an inquiry into your database for information. When you want to get something out of your database, it is query that can fetch it for you. So over here, we have defined query as query is a special database terminology that is used across all platforms. A query is a request for data or information from a database. This is what I said. I wasn't saying it because of what is written here, but I was just telling you how it is in real life, and I want you to open your mind and get it. A query is a request for data or information. So you request for information from a database, table, or a combination of tables. In Microsoft Access, a query is a database object that can be created to extract data from a database, answer a simple question, perform calculations, combine data from multiple tables, or even add, change, or delete data. Let me make it simple for you. If we have 1 million records in a database, are you with me? If we have 1 million records in a database, that database is like a warehouse of information, a lot of information. But at every point in time, listen to me carefully, at every point in time, you will need some part of that data or information. Let me put it this way. You do not need all your data at all times. At every point in time, it is only one particular type of information that is useful to you. Hello? Let me use your brain as an example. Your brain is a database. Whether you like it or not, your brain is a database. There are a lot of tables in your brains. There are a lot of data stored in your brains. Your brain has been storing data from when you were one day old till today. So there's a lot of information in your head right now. But as we speak now, you can't say everything you know unless I ask you a question, right? When I ask a question, that question is a query. When that question hits your brain will quickly process and fetch that information. That is a query. A query is like a question to a database. Once you send that query, your database receives it and say, oh, okay, I fetch what you need and I present it. Can I ask you a simple question? Now, what is the answer to my question? Now, because I've not asked you the question, you don't know which answer to give me. But you have the answer. You have it. But you don't know what to tell me because you don't know what I'm asking. Are you with me? Good. Immediately I ask you the question, the answer will pop up immediately. But if I don't ask, the answer cannot pop up. That is how databases are exactly. Do you know that you actually know a lot of things? You know a lot of things. If we are to dig into your brains, we'll find a lot of information. For any information to come out of you, it is a question that will fetch out that information. What did you have for breakfast? Do you have an answer? Okay, what is the answer? So, you know the answer now. But you could never have given me this answer without my query. Let me show you how queries work in databases. Let me go to Google. You all know Google, right? Yes. Okay, this is Google. I have Google here, right here on my home page. Or I can just come here and type google.com. Can you see this? So this is Google homepage, and this is where I enter my search term. Please, are you here? This is where I enter what? My search term to Google is a query. Google will take my search term and run it in their database. Immediately I hit enter. So let me search for something. I want to search for computational logic. Please, have you seen what I'm searching for? Computational logic. I'm going to hit enter. When I hit enter, Google is giving me information from their database, and that's what they are showing me here. Now, for me as a web developer, I know how we take someone's search query and run it in a database. This particular query, Google is running it through their URL. So let me go to their URL and click here and copy whatever is here. Let me paste it somewhere in Notepad for you to see. I'm going to paste what Google had in their URL. Whatever Google had in their URL is what they are using to query their database. Look at all the information running in their URL just after what I just typed. Let me go through this and try and read it. When you check here, you are seeing https://google.com. This is their secured domain running on a secure server. Now, this particular search is like let me make it simple. It is the directory that holds the database information. Let me put it in simple terms. Now, after that search, you see question mark. Do you see this question mark? Now, anytime you are running a request through a URL, question mark stands for where. So this search is telling their server to search in their search database where Q is equal to what? Okay, so they are using computational plus logic. They have separated the words and they have used plus. Now, watch this. And SXSRF is equal to something something something. So you see the next and. Are you watching this? Yeah. And EI is equal to something something something. It ends here. And IFLSIG is equal to something something something. And OQ is equal to computational logic. And GSLCP is equal to all of these. All of these. And S client is equal to all of these, and VED is equal to this, and UACT is equal to 5. Now, all the things you saw that is equal to something, they are variables. They are variables that will tell their database how to treat the data and what they should fetch, and how to organize the final page. So these variables, they have defined it in their programming language within the page that has the code. What I'm really interested in here is where Q is equal to this. This Q is a variable that stands for query. So perform a search. Google is telling their system that perform a search where query is equal to continental logic. So what we typed, they are holding it as a query to run the search. And so the results they will give us is all about that computational logic. Please, are you with me? In a database, it is only a piece of information that you will need at any point in time. So you write your query to fetch that piece for you. Look at the data I have here. Let's look at it carefully. Let's look at the data I have here. And let's assume this data has over 100,000 students in it. If this data has the records of 100,000 students, we cannot read the tables to get every information we need at every point in time, because the data is vast. For us to fetch what we need to write a query. So for example, we can send a query to this table, and tell the table to provide a list of all female students, and just give us their name, their first name, last name, and their telephone numbers. Let's say we want to call all the ladies in the class. Now, if you want to call all the ladies, you cannot go to your table that has 100,000 students and say you are scanning through to find ladies. That's not how we handle databases. What you have to do is to send a query and let the query fetch all ladies for you. Pay attention to what I'm saying. I don't know if we provided their telephone numbers, but this is a field for the telephone numbers. Let me just put in some numbers and we will use that to run our query. All right. Now, this data is very short. That is why you may not feel the impact. But when you are running a real query, you run a query in a table that has several records. Okay, so let me just create a query. We can choose to finish this table later. Let me run a query. To run a query, I'll go to the Create tab. You see the Create tab? When you click on the Create tab, you need to move to the Queries group. Please, can you see this? And select this. When we wanted to create a table, we came to the Tables group and we selected what? Do you remember? Now, we want to create a query, we want to select this, which is what? When you click on it, Query Design will give you the page where queries are created. To create queries, you have this. Over here, I see Show Table. This Show Table allows you to select the table that you want to fetch your query from. Remember, queries only extract data from a table. So a query needs a table to fetch its data from. So this Show Table, it is there for you to tell the query where it should fetch its data from. Also, a query can fetch its data from another query. So when you look up here, Show Tables, you can see one tab that says what? Another tab that says what? We don't have any query, that's why there's nothing here. And there's another tab that says what? Both. So this tells you, pay attention, a query. Now if you understand this, you've made a lot of progress. A query is simply an extraction of information. Now a query can ask any question. A query can fetch any information. But to fetch it, you need to design it here. What you have to understand is that a query fetches its information from tables or from queries. Okay, so this is the only table I have, so I'll use it for my query. I'll select it and click on what? Add. Now I'll close it. So when I add, it will show here, this is my table. Remember the table we designed? It has several fields. Do you see the fields in it? These are the fields we created. Do you remember? Good. So this is it. So all you need to do is to add it. When you add it, this is where it will show. Now, what you have to understand is that this is a page Access has given you to design your query. Don't let the page scare you. Don't let the page look strange to you. This is what they have given, so we are going to use it like that. I just want to explain to you. What you see here means the table the information is going to come from. If you want the information to come from multiple tables, you add all of them here. We have only created one table, so that's the table we'll add. Sometimes your query comes from just one table. It doesn't matter. I need some information from the students table. Let's assume we have 100,000 students in the students table, and we said we want all what? We want what? All female students. Is that not what we said? So what if something is going to happen in the school and the administration requests for a list of all female? Are you going to go into the database, copy and paste, copy and paste? No. You need to write a query to extract that information for you. So what I want you to understand is that a query is simply a request to your database for a specific information. And you can ask for anything. The query I want to receive or retrieve now is just to extract female students. Also, I don't want every information about the female student. I just want their first name, last names, and telephone. I don't need any other information. So when we are using databases, we actually retrieve the information we need. We don't retrieve everything from the database. You only fetch what you need. Right now, I want their names, their what? Telephone. So let me come and design it. This is where we design our query. This is very simple. Watch this. Over here, what do you see here? Field. It means select the fields you want to see in your query. Simple. I'll come here and select the first one. I want to see first name. Do we want to see first name? It will pick students here by itself, and that's true because it is coming from the table called what? Students. Let me come here. I want to get their last name, and let me come here. I want to get their telephone. Is that what I said? Yes. Phone number. This is what I want to see when I run my query. Don't worry about how it looks. This is how Access has given it to you, how to create it. So I just come here, I enter my first name, last name, phone number. Now, how do I tell Access that I want the female? That is where the criteria comes in. Criteria here is what they should trim the data to. If I don't bring a criteria, this will still run, but this will fetch all female. Sorry, it will fetch every student. It doesn't know that it's looking for female. It will fetch every student and give me first name, last name, and telephone. Let me run it and show you something without a query. Now, without a criteria. You can't write a query without a criteria. But let me run this without a criteria. It means I have not defined the table at all. Over here, what do you see here? I'm going to click on it. Let me zoom out and run. When I run, it will show this is my query. Let me tell you, a query looks just like a table, but it is an extract of information. It is not a table by itself. It's a table created out of a response to your question. I said I wanted first name, last name, and phone number, and it has fetched all that it could find. This is what you call query. Your query is an answer to a question to your database, and the results it brings to you. This is a result it has brought to me. If you look at the table, you see that the table has several fields. But the query didn't fetch all those fields because a query takes direct instructions or specific instructions. So whatever you tell a query, that is exactly what it will fetch. So now, we said we wanted female, right? Let me go back and tell the query that no, I don't need all students. I need female. Because with what I have done, if I had 100,000 students, it would have brought all of them to me. And no, that's not what I need. I can tell them female. I can even tell my query that I want female who are between the ages of 20 and 24. And it will fetch me that information. Exactly that. That's what a query is. Watch this. Over here, we also have what we call what? Views. Do you remember the views we saw in tables? Who can tell me the views we saw? Design view and what? Data sheet view. When it comes to queries, we have different views. When it comes to reports, we have different views. When it comes to forms, we have different views. Let me click here. What do we have here? What do we have here? SQL View. This is my favorite view. If you're a programmer, this is where you like, because here we write some small code in SQL language. Then here, this is what? I'll go to design view. This is where we were before. This is a design view. Now I'm going to tell my query to fetch only female. Now I want you to be an expert in this. This is very easy. When we came here, we just added this table, students table. Do you remember how we added this? We saw it in a list. We click on add. That's all. We came down here and under field we selected what we want to see. To select what you want to see is simple. I want to see first name. I want to see last name. I want to see phone number. That's simple. So now you understand what field is, what table is. You can sort. Sort is sort ascending or descending. But I am sorting under this field called first name. So when I say sort ascending, it means that when you get the result, arrange them by first name in ascending. I could have done my sorting here. If I had done my sorting here, it would have arranged it by last name in ascending or descending. Does it make sense to you? Then show. This box means, listen to me. This box means the field I have selected, I want you to show it. Because you can select a field that you don't want to see, even though you have selected it. Why will I select a field that I don't want to see? Maybe I'm using that field to write my criteria. That's exactly what I'm about to do here. I want to select the field called gender, but I don't want gender to be part of the results. So I'll select don't show. Then I'll come to the criteria section under gender and type female. I've finished my query. This is how queries are. As simple. Queries are as simple as this. If you can just read what I have here, you understand what queries are. If you can just read what I have here. Now let me run it again and you will see. Now how many female do we have in our table right now? There are 2, right? I'm going to click on run and we will see what we will get. What did we get? Are these the ladies? Do you recognize the names? Do you recognize the names here? So this is a query. Don't let query sound complicated to you. Don't let query sound complicated to you. A query is simply a request for specific information. Simple. Okay, so I'm going to save this query and we will create another query. I'm going to save this query and we will create another query. Okay, let me save this query. I'll come up here, click on this and type a name here. I'll call this female students query. Please watch this. This is the name I'm giving to my query. Female students query. I'll click OK. And the query will come here and join the database objects here under which title?
Queries.
Under queries. So under tables we have one, under queries we have one. You know what? Let me go into my table and add one more female student and see what will happen in my query. In my table, I want to add one more female student. Okay, so I add Millicent here, AHIS 1952, and your first name is what? And your last name is what? Insia. And your other name is what? Mark. Okay. All right. So I have added one more student. Let me save and go back to my query. And this query is in the datasheet view. Let me go to design view and let me run it again. I'm going to run the query again. So I'll click on run and it will run again. And let's see, what do we have now? Do we have 2 or 3? We have 3 now. So your query will always obey you. Your query will always obey you. Okay. Let me write another query, a different query. Who can tell me what information we will need from our database this time? What do we want to get from our database? Okay, let me just write a simple one. The next one, I want all the student IDs from the male students. All the student IDs of male students. So I'll come to create again and I'll go to query designs. Over here, who can tell me what I'll do? I need to add simple. If you remember this, then you remember how to create queries. After adding, you just close this. You can fetch your information from multiple tables. So you just add the tables you need and then you close. Hello. I hope you are with me. Excellent, 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 excellent. Now, let me come here and I want, let's say, I want the first name, I want second name, which is surname or last name, and I want student ID of all male students. So I'll come here and select gender, and this I'll let it show. And under criteria, I'll type male. This is simple. I don't see how this will be difficult for anyone. The steps are simple. We added a table, we selected what we wanted to see, and we put in a criteria. Simple. So let me run it. You have to run it when you finish creating it. You click on run, and it will fetch that for you. Is this not what we requested for? We requested for first name, last name, student ID, and we said the gender should be male, so that's giving me all male students. If we had an age field, we could have written a query to extract information from either male or student who are within a certain age range. And you can actually ask for any information. You just need to know how to input it. That's all. So what I have demonstrated to you is the meaning of queries. What I have demonstrated to you is the meaning of queries. It is left to you to understand what it means. I want one person to give me an explanation of queries after the demonstration and explanation I've given. Tell me what queries are. Who can do that for me? Who can do that for me? In your own words. In your own words. Tell me. Yes. Excellent. Please, can you clap for him? What he said is very intelligent. Did you hear him? Michael, repeat what he said. Michael, you repeat what he said. You are not listening. Don't say I didn't hear. I want you to repeat. Ask him to tell you again. Don't try and repeat what he said though. Understand what he's saying. He said it is a specific set of words. No. You're not even listening. It is a specific set of instructions used to extract specific information from a table or group of tables, or from tables and queries, other queries. So in a database, if you need information, you use a query. Now, the last time I entered some information to extract some information from our database. Do you understand? Do you remember? Do you remember? I entered some of your names and the database gave us your details. So what I entered is a query in that database. Just that the query has been programmed to receive a question like a name. So when you give it a name, someone's name, it will take it and go into the database and search for that name and bring you the information about the person. So if you want to fetch any kind of information from a large database, you need to create a query for that. Please, are you listening to him? Are you listening to him? He's saying that what if we only have the ID number of a student and we want to extract other information about that student, right? Okay, let's create the query for that. So to do that, we'll go to create and go to query design. Do you remember both here will give us the queries and the tables? Okay, so I can just stick to tables and click on students, and then I'll click on add. Okay, so I want to fetch from the students table. Now, over here you need to tell your query which fields you would like to see after the query runs. What do we want from the student? We want to see the first name. We want to see the surname. Maybe if there are other names, we want to see other names. And let's say we want to see the telephone of the student we are searching for, but we are using the student ID to search for. Hello? We are using the student ID to search for. Now, we know the student ID. The student ID we know, we'll put it under the criteria. The criteria is where you will type what you are looking for. So I want to search by ID AHIS 1852. We have this, but we want other information about whoever has this ID. This is how you design it in Access. So after entering it here, you come to run and it will fetch. Who do you think it is going to fetch? So when we click on run, do you see the person here? Is it correct? Do you see the information? Do you see the information? This is what the query brought out to us. So you can actually search for whatever you want. Alright, so I'll let you go and practice this. I want you to watch the video and practice. I'm sure because you are hearing or seeing this for the first time, you will need to do some practice to get the understanding. but this is queries in Access. This is how it looks like. Later we'll design forms, and forms will let us create beautiful interfaces to show us the kind of data we have in our database. And we can even run searches for more information. So I have one query here. Let me save it. I'll click here and I'll save this query as male students query. Alright, so I'll click OK, and I have one query here as well. So I'll end my video here. So I want to thank you for joining us. If you do not understand anything, I want you to leave a comment and I'll respond to it. If you want to know more about databases, I want you to stick to this channel and always check out for my tutorials on databases. With time, I'll talk about other database systems as well, including MySQL and SQL Server. So if you want to know more about databases, subscribe to this channel and join the family. So I'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much.